Hopefully it is starting. I'm assuming that it started. I switched back over really quickly so that I didn't disappear on you guys again. Hello, welcome to Phoenix Talks. We're in our third episode now. And this week we are going to be talking about pressure of dot, dot, dot. Where this conversation could go is so many different variables, variations, levels. We're just going to see what happens and where it goes. As always, I am joined by Diane RDBiase. She is also a therapist and coach, and we just love to sit and have a public conversation about whatever topic just kind of gets thrown at us as the week goes on. And it seems that a lot of people have been put under a lot of pressure. Now, what's crazy about that particular statement is that we're always put under pressure, but where does it come from? And that's what we want to try and uncover just a little bit today. So, what's your burning question?
My burning question or the public's burning question?
Well, your burning question for them or to
So
kick us off.
I would say, I'll do this. The burning question they should have for themselves is why? Why do I feel this way about this thing that's making me put pressure on myself to perform a certain way, feel a certain way, be a certain way, do a certain thing? Pressure of what? Why is this pressure existent to begin with? Because in order to be in that flow state, you can't make yourself feel that pressure. And I just said, make yourself feel, because you had mentioned, where does it come from? It all begins and ends within ourselves. And if we are programmed to believe X, Y, and Z, and we judge ourselves based on X, Y, and Z, which we covered that topic last week, we're going to put pressure on ourselves because of the expectations we project onto ourselves in all aspects of life.
Mm-hmm. And going back to the last conversation that we had, we were talking about the agreements that we have generated and created within ourselves on how we view ourselves, our place in the world, how we operate, what we do, our limiting beliefs, our non-limiting beliefs, how we rise, how we fall. And all of these things stem from agreements, which when we're trying to live up to ourselves, let alone the outside world, wow, the amount of pressure that we don't need help with putting on just surviving.
Right. Right. It's important to not judge anything if it's going to be with regards to putting pressure on yourself for something.
Mm-hmm.
You really cannot approach yourself and your experience with any kind of disdain, resentment, feelings of I'm better than, inferiority or superiority, either way, any form of judgment, any little criticisms. So you really can't come at yourself with the negative programming that you received. You have to choose to come at yourself from a different angle and come at yourself from a different perspective that negates that programming. And that helps you take the pressure off of yourself, because now you're not seeing yourself from the critical eyes of judgment.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Because so many times we just get caught up in what we think. And the branches, we talk about branches a lot, how just one thought, one word, validation, judgment, pressure, just the thought of those individual words and the branches that can happen as a result. But when we think about the pressure and the expectation from others that we assume,
Right.
and that we have agreed to
Right. Right.
can literally make us feel like a shaken up Coke bottle.
So ask why. Why did we agree to those things?
We
Why
were
is that
trained to.
applicable to us?
Yeah, we were trained to.
Mm-hmm.
And as we're growing up, as we're acting like the sponges that we are when we are children and developing, because up until between the ages of 6 and 10, we're living in a theta dream state. And this has been shown time and again from people who study brain waves and brainwave activity, where young children are just dreaming. So anything that's put into that dream, if it's rewarded and if it's repetitive, it becomes reality. It becomes their experience. So when they step outside of that experience, even in their own mind, the amount of pressure that starts to build up from the inside,
Mm-hmm.
because they're not meeting the agreements and the expectations of others.
Right. Right. And that leads to shame. That leads to misleading individuals, lying, covering your own butt, survival mode.
Wearing a mask,
Mm-hmm. All of the above.
all of the above.
Take the pressure
So,
off. It just releases so much in your body too.
mhm. Take a very stressful situation. A lot of people are going through change right now. There was a lot in another show that I co host. There was a lot of change where people are trying to remove themselves from a relationship, remove themselves from a career, finding a career. But there's a lot of significant changes that are occurring in people's lives, especially right now. It's spring, so things are starting to wake up.
Yeah.
So, and I forgot where I was going with that ADHD. But the pressure of, I gotta have, I don't have, I don't have enough, I don't fit in, I don't know enough. You're right, you don't. Why? Because you believe that. And you've put that pressure on yourself that you have to.
Right. I would like to suggest that individuals shift those thoughts when those thoughts do arise, because they will shift immediately in that moment, and you'll take the pressure off. Shift
Mm-hmm.
immediately into a positive thought about yourself, or the opposite of what you think that's negative.
Right. And in other times, you just need to get through it. Things are going to happen that are going to put us into a negative state of mind. And sometimes putting a positive spin on it, because I get this argument from a lot of people. So I want to, and since you brought that up, I want to chat a little bit on this branch where, oh God, you can't turn everything into a positive outcome. Oh God, you can't turn everything into a, well, this happens for a reason, or synchronicity, or, and sometimes, shh, it just happens.
Mm-hmm.
So when in that moment, feel what you feel so that you can acknowledge it, so that you can recognize it, recognize what the body is telling you about that feeling. Then, what'd you learn from it? What'd you get out of it? Why did it happen? How can you look at it differently?
Exactly. It's good to remind everybody how to process those emotions, because you can't ignore them, you can't suppress them. Yes, you can shift them into something positive, but you can't just be like, they don't exist. Poof, you're gone.
Right.
No, they're not. They're just going to manifest themselves in toxic thought patterns and behaviors going forward in
Mm-hmm.
different ways. So they
Right.
need to be addressed. It's incredibly important to process those emotions. So thank you for reminding everybody on how to do that.
Oh, absolutely. Because sometimes they just see the white light mumbo jumbo
Mhm.
and they're so hurt that they get angrier that all they see or all they hear is, well, just think differently.
Mhm. Well, the reality is that people don't know what else to think because they're not familiar with a different way of thinking. So
Exactly.
it's important for you to educate yourself, surround yourself with individuals that never make you feel like you're less than or not enough. Only hang around with people who make you feel seen and heard, and where you feel your nervous system is relaxed around.
Mm-hmm.
Then you'll learn something about yourself because you'll have that clarity of thought. When you take the pressure off, you also have to take the pressure off with regards to who's around you in your experience and what you're putting into your brain. Are you putting pressure related things into your brain with what you're listening to, with what you're watching, with what you're reading? Or are you putting stuff there that is validating what you feel on the inside and allowing you a space to breathe and to think clearly, to expand your knowledge, to exercise your neuroplasticity? You really need to take the pressure off in all aspects of life. Processing your emotions takes the pressure off. You know,
Right.
all this external judgment and programming is putting the expectations on yourself to be something that you're not. So when you take the pressure off, you give yourself permission to actually get to know who you truly are and choose for
Right.
yourself what you resonate with and who you resonate with. And
Right.
setting boundaries is hard. Speaking up for yourself is hard. But in doing so, you take the pressure off. Pressure comes because you're not comfortable with not being authentic.
Mm. Yeah. And if you're just allowing that pressure to stay inside and build and create a dialogue and create feelings, my dear friends, at that point, no one is doing it to you.
Mhm.
This is a human experience. A lot of human beings do this and they get so wrapped up. I've done it. We get so wrapped up in the conversations that we should be having externally,
Yeah.
where they will be authentic, they will be genuine,
Yes.
because they're not made up by the agreements and the beliefs and the limiting beliefs that we all hold on inside. So, by having these conversations and these dialogues inside, instead of relieving the pressure and stepping over that comfort zone, because yeah, it's nerve-wracking, especially the higher the intensity of the needed conversation. It's
Mhm.
nerve-wracking, it's scary. But what's scarier, living with that unknown assumption or releasing the pressure of having the dialogue with the other person?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the reality is if we're not authentic with ourselves, we're going to constantly be under pressure to be something that we're not,
Mm-hmm.
to disrespect ourselves. So setting boundaries is respecting ourselves. Speaking up for ourselves is respecting ourselves. When we show ourselves that we respect ourselves, other people watch and they treat us that way.
Yeah, and this
Being
isn't to teach people to be jerks towards other people.
right.
It's to say, okay, you feel a certain way. You feel like somebody has made you feel a certain way.
Mhm.
If you haven't addressed that with them, beyond when that experience happened, they are no longer accountable for how you feel.
Right.
And that's a tough pill to swallow for so many people.
It is, but and the bottom line is if we are disrespecting ourselves and others disrespect us, and we allow that and we accept that behavior, then what we're in essence doing is putting pressure on ourselves to meet other people's needs and taking responsibility for their happiness and masking and shifting ourselves and molding ourselves to somebody that will please them, which is incredibly against our own nature and completely disrespecting ourselves. So we put ourselves in these pressure cookers of perfectionism for other people's needs,
Right.
as opposed to releasing all of that. And you had touched upon the physicality too at some point in the conversation of releasing pressure. um, I feel like we should bring up some techniques for people to allow themselves permission, or ways that they see it physically. Crying is a big one.
Yeah.
Yawning is another thing. I know it sounds
Yeah.
weird, but
And honestly, in one of my coaching experiences where I was the student and other people, I was watching, we were all on Zoom and I was watching other people and they're just yawning openly.
okay.
And the presenter or the coach, David Key, okay, he's he's one of my favorite people in the coaching world. He is just an amazing person. And it was during a hypnosis class. And he was just talking and calming everybody down, getting everybody into a state of relaxation, because that's what trance is. It's just deep relaxation, and nobody does it for you. You actually do it yourself. They just help guide you to that state. Anyway, people would start yawning. Now, in a public setting, how often have we heard, "Oh, you must be bored"?
Right.
Not true. You've just shifted how you need the oxygen and how you're using the oxygen. And the brain is saying, okay, oh, excuse me, mention it. And it's
Yeah.
a deep gulp in.
Yes. Yes.
I mean, when you yawn, you are taking in a lot of oxygen very
Yes.
quickly.
Yes. And on that note, that's a perfect segue into another way to release pressure, is a good old fashioned om.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because you're using your now this you're internally using sound and vibration to release that pressure from your belly into your chest and into your third eye chakra and out your crown. So it releases pressure in a multifaceted way.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of people will guide that it's not just a O sound that you make. That's where you start.
Right.
That it's actually multi-voweled. And
Yes.
for each vowel tone, it enters into another chakra because each one has a different vibration. Same
Right.
note,
I
same
think
note that you release.
I'm not an expert in yogic anything, but what I remember learning was that the starts in your belly, in a belly breath, the deep diaphragm
Mm-hmm.
breath, and then the O moves up here in your throat area, and
Mm-hmm.
then buzzing sound comes up in here and resonates and opens up this whole area.
And as you close into the M, it moves from the throat into the third eye through the sinus.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Wow, I
Now,
didn't even take any classes on that. And this was just flooding in. So yay, intuition. So,
right.
but I've also spent years singing, so I know the different placements.
Yeah.
Um,
But
but
it's
yes,
great for
doing an om helps to release pressure and to raise the
exercise,
vibration.
exercise singing.
Yes. Singing is a form of self-expression, and you don't have to, share it with the world,
Yeah.
and nobody cares. Sing as if nobody can hear you.
Creativity in general
Mm-hmm.
helps release the pressure, because creativity, let me define what I believe creativity to be. Anything that gets you into the flow state. It doesn't matter what it looks like, because everybody just makes this assumption, oh, I'm not an artist. Oh, well, I don't know how to do these things. No, 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 no. I don't care if you're an accountant.
If you're an
If you
accountant, do a
want,
Sudoku.
and that puts you in a flow state then go for it and go be creative with those, whatever it is that you're doing.
Yeah.
So creativity takes the pressure off because you're in a more natural state.
Mm-hmm. Gardening is a form of creation.
There you go. Mm-hmm.
Cooking.
exactly.
If you need creative expression and you enjoy in the kitchen, find a new recipe
Hmm.
or take a recipe and make it yours.
Right,
Just I intuitive cook a lot when I do, and I want to try something new. I just tap in and I'm like, okay, I have these ingredients. What can I do? And I just open up to the creativity aspect of it, and boom, I've got a meal. But writing poetry, painting a picture, these are the assumptions that everybody here, everybody thinks about. Not everybody, but a lot of people. I don't want to
right,
overgeneralize, but a lot of people can associate creativity with art in any
right,
form.
right, right.
Creativity is an expression of you.
And creativity helps you balance your hormones and emotions, and therefore relaxes your nervous system and gets you into that flow state, which will release all the pressure. So, getting out into nature and grounding yourself. And
Mm-hmm.
people, there's a lot of also misconception about grounding yourself. We are electromagnetic beings, and the earth is literally grounding. If you know anything about uh, why electricians need to ground the wire into whatever. We're the same thing. We are
We are.
conductors. We need to ground. If we're dysregulated and putting pressure on ourselves and we're not grounded, we're going to add to the pressure and make matters worse for ourselves. So it's a matter of decompressing
Mm-hmm.
in nature.
And for people who enjoy tracking patterns, when there are solar flares, when there are drastic and dramatic changes in the weather, when someone slams a door, you feel the shift. You may not recognize it, that it is an impact on your electromagnetic field on a personal level. But if you track it and you look at how you react on a mental or physical level, you can literally say, okay, I'm feeling this way. And then you check the weather. Oh, that's why. Or for me, there are times where I will feel a certain way and I will check solar activity. Oh, that's why. There are other times where I will feel a different way and I will check seismic activity. Oh, that's why. We're all connected to the earth and its own electromagnetic field. And when that shifts, so do we.
And I highly recommend everyone does their own research, Google, DuckDuckGo, whatever I don't care what search engine you use whatever, and get yourself some more information, whatever resonates with you most with regards to
Absolutely.
we are all connected to everything. Look up electroculture, look up grounding mats, look up how you yourself conduct electricity. All that affects your emotional regulation, and so you help yourself think more clearly when you're able to stabilize yourself. It's that
Just
simple.
popped in. Just popped in something that everybody, just about everybody, can relate to. A Tesla ball, where you've seen, if you haven't experienced it yourself, where you see typically small children, where they have their hand on this giant metal ball and their hair sticks up on end. This is affecting their electromagnetic field because it's running the current through them. I don't know the scientific explanation, but it just popped in as a reference to how connected to energy we are.
Yeah.
Because there is no spirituality without science and vice versa.
Mm-hmm. They're one and the same.
They're one and the same.
Mm-hmm. Right. So there is plenty of evidence out there for tree huggers of how it affects your body.
Mm-hmm.
How it
Earthing.
affects your nervous system.
Earthing. You can actually go onto YouTube, especially if you're already there, if you're watching this. You can look up earthing
Right.
and take a look at, I don't remember the exact name of the video, but it's about an hour long. And it's about reconnecting, walking barefoot
Yeah.
in the soil,
Yeah.
and how it helps to replenish almost instantaneously the neurons in our body that have been depleted.
Hmm.
And this has been scientifically proven. So there is
Right.
something to reconnecting, grounding, just to bring it all back, but
Right.
reconnecting and grounding.
The clarity
And
of thought is the most important piece because it's going to bring you right back to understanding in what ways you're bringing pressure into your world and why. And do
mhm,
you really resonate with those things? Is
right.
that how you choose to proceed going forward? Are you going to shift yourself into a different thought pattern and behavior? What are those new thought patterns and behaviors that are healthier? Now, here's another way you can take the pressure off. As you're discovering what thought patterns and behaviors are healthier for you specifically, do not discourage yourself if you try something and you're like, oh, I don't like this either. Don't go back to the familiar. Choose something else instead. Take the pressure off. You don't need to be perfect right out the gate. You can't be because you don't know what you're looking for. You don't know what resonates with you. It's discovering you're discovering yourself. How are
Mhm.
you supposed to know what you don't know unless you learn it? So take that pressure off as you go through this process. You'll feel a lot better going through the process. And it'll be a lot healthier for you, and you'll have a lot less chance of getting back onto old hamster wheels if you stop putting pressure on yourself with it having to look a specific way. The
Water
what I would
doesn't boil immediately on fire.
say that again.
Water does not boil immediately on fire.
Mm-hmm.
And if you
Mm-hmm.
sit and watch it, even if it only takes 5 minutes, you're going to start to go insane
Yeah.
from boredom. Why isn't it happening fast enough? God, is this ever going to start boiling? Then you add the ingredients that you're wanting to boil. They don't boil immediately, they don't cook immediately.
Yes.
So when you are trying new things, first you're allowing the opportunity for change to enter in. First of all, it has to find its way inside
Mm-hmm.
on a cellular level.
Right.
Thought is just a thought until actualized into a feeling. And what you experience is based back into that thought. So, as you were starting to bring in new things, try different things, they may not work immediately. This is one reason why Western medicine or Eastern medicine is overlooked by so many people who have taken Western medicine that fixes it yesterday instead of fixing the body as a whole. Because Eastern medicine focuses more on the whole, which takes a little longer in many cases. So, to allow the patients, you asked for it. Many cases, give me patience, and people are on their hands and knees in church, at home. I need patience. Okay, granted.
You have patience, you just have to allow yourself permission to utilize it. And
Yes.
that
Putting
all
your putting the pressure on, the all that is to
yeah.
just snap a finger and okay, you're patient now. It doesn't work that way.
No, no. And we do have to understand that that pressure that we put on ourselves to be a specific way comes from what we were taught to believe about ourselves
Right.
or external expectations. Well, you're 25, you should, do X, Y, and Z by now. You're 30, you should have this by then. 40, you should be this. 50, you should be that. No, you should be exactly what you're supposed to be, and you don't know what that is until you discover what that is for yourself.
Right.
We're each unique, and you can't take on responsibility for other people's expectations they project onto you. That pressure needs to come off, and that's undoing the programming, releasing yourself from that judgment, doing these physical things to help you stabilize, to make it feel like it's coming off, like the pressure's coming off.
Right.
Clarity of thought to be able to walk through these analyses, if you will, with clarity and love.
Right. And a fun quote unquote example that came to mind when we are trying to make these changes and we're expecting them to just immediately start showing themselves, revealing themselves, or just happen. I was shown parents trying to get their children to go to sleep and yelling at them because they're not asleep. Go to sleep now. It doesn't happen that way.
Yeah.
And any person who's been a parent, unless they're extremely fortunate and lucky, cannot tell a child, go to sleep, and they immediately will. There are many that can, because they're just like, okay, and they're out. But they typically have to be they're ready to go to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
So when you are making the change, when you're trying to release the pressure of the expectation that you have on yourself, and you're trying to reprogram the inside from the inside out, because that's how it happens, you're going to experience the same things that you have been in the process. Be okay with that. Give the permission for the growth. And that's what we've been saying. To give the permission for the growth and to recognize each step and acknowledge and celebrate inside when you've leveled up, so to speak.
Right.
Because you'll notice.
Yeah.
You'll notice the difference. Eventually, people who exercise to build muscle, it doesn't just pile on. What you are seeing is immediately after a workout, because most people don't walk around with their veins popping. That's immediately after a workout, after the muscles have been contracted and tightened.
Mm-hmm.
But that didn't happen overnight. That happened with a lot of hard work. You're probably looking at half a year minimum.
I think it's very important to release the pressure of what it's supposed to look like for you.
Yes.
You don't know what it's supposed to look like for you. You just have to allow yourself to surrender to it and let it unfold for you. You can't predict your future, and what you put your focus on is what you might create. So how do you know that you're not limiting yourself too? Just allow yourself to evolve and observe yourself and observe if you like what you're doing. If you don't, shift it. No pressure, no judgment.
Right.
Flow.
Because the pressure that other people put on you out externally, that's enough.
Mm-hmm.
That's enough to have to work through. Because people want their own validation. People want you to judge them in a positive light.
Now, that's not to be confused with a valuable individual in your life that is
right.
assisting you by holding you accountable, like with your permission and request. You have those relationships and those things, not to confuse that with that.
Not
Holding
at all.
you accountable for bettering yourself and living up to what you say you want to do is a healthy thing.
Yes, absolutely. And thank you for that clarification, because a lot of people can take that a little bit too literal and too extreme. But when somebody is literally behind you and your personal cheerleader,
yes,
it may not always be pretty, but at least you know that they're supportive. Yay.
Right.
Because you know that what you're hearing from them isn't a should.
Right.
Of pressure.
Right. That's different.
It's
That's
completely different.
reminding you to hold yourself accountable. Holding yourself accountable is different than putting unrealistic pressure on yourself that's based in programming that doesn't fit you.
Right.
And that's where setting boundaries and using your discernment. So that's the positive judgment, which is using it for the purpose of discernment. Does this serve me? Is this making me a better person? Is this helping me evolve? Is this adding value to my experience? Is this making me feel at peace and relaxing me?
Something that I've had clients work with is a list. And they can do it over the course of a few days, or just sitting down for an hour, hour and a half, just thinking about all these things that we call pressure, or I call shoulds. What's the difference between, do I have to have this? Is this a have to? Is this a need to? Or is this a should? A have to is an agreement that you've made with somebody else. Paying bills is a have to. Feeding yourself is a have to. Getting enough rest is a have to. Wearing a certain color tie, need to. A lot of things, and if you go through and look at the different areas of pressure that you're feeling in your life, which ones actually need your attention?
Right.
And which ones are you giving the wrong kind of attention to, which are preventing you from the things that you actually need? Because if you're putting too much pressure on lack, you're going to perpetuate lack. If you put too much pressure on, I eat too much, you're going to continue to eat too much, because that's where your focus is. That's where your pressure is. Or if you put pressure on, I have to lose weight, you're still going to continue plateauing where you're at or gaining. So keep that in mind when you're looking at how many expectations you have of yourself inside, that you have to look a certain way, weigh a certain way, wear a certain amount of level of clothing, have a certain level of knowledge. These are yours.
Yeah. That's for you to decide.
Yeah.
Without limitations. And so one of my favorite affirmations that I created for myself was, I am a limitless being of infinite potential. That takes all my pressure off.
Right.
Because my first question is this limiting? Am I limiting myself in some way? How do I know what I'm supposed to, you know?
Right. Why aren't you married yet? You're not getting any younger. So why don't you have insurance? Because it's too expensive. Can't afford it.
Right. Does that even resonate with you? Like, what do you want? What do you want?
That's the point. What defines you?
That's it.
Who do you want to be? Who do you see yourself being?
And you can't discover that if you put all this pressure on yourself to be things that aren't resonating with you.
No. And if you're an experience where, oh, I'm going to let this person down, I'm just going to pause and give you this face. I don't need to say anything else.
I think this is a great conversation, and I love it. I think Marie needs to go outside, unfortunately.
She's getting a little rambunctious there and moving around. We've given the viewers a lot to think about. We've been going for about 45 minutes. So I think that we should, put the pressure on to pause until next week.
Kind of pressure.
Yeah, she's got a different kind of pressure, and we don't want her releasing that, especially on camera. So thank you everyone for tuning in. If you're watching the replay, thank you
Thank
for
you.
sticking around.
Thank you for resonating with healing. Thank you for resonating with Micah and I.
Yes,
And thank you for your presence, no matter where in space and time you receive it.
100%. And you'll triple on this video if you're not watching it live, the exact moment that you need to, because you'll hear exactly what you need to when.
Exactly.
And taking the pressure off of having the knowledge of when it's going to happen. It's going to happen when it's supposed to. So until we meet again, you guys have a great week, and we'll figure out something else that we're going to talk about next week. I'm sure it'll be along the same lines, and we're just going to keep climbing those branches till we rise as Phoenix, right?
Absolutely. Let's do
All
it.
right. Let's do it.
You
Okay.
got this.
Make it a great week and keep going, everyone.
You got it. Bye, everyone.